You will never rise above the level of your own expectations for yourself. The man who demands little from himself receives little from life. The man who demands much from himself bends the world in his direction, because the world cannot resist a will that is fortified by discipline and a mind that refuses to lower its standards. If you wish to succeed, you must set a higher standard for yourself than anyone else would dare to set for you. It is not the standards of society, your employer, your peers, or your friends that will determine your destiny. It is the standard you hold yourself to when no one is watching. When the night is quiet and your conscience speaks, it is asking you one question. Are you doing all that you can do? The truth is, most men are their own greatest enemies, not because they lack talent, but because they settle. They let themselves off the hook. They excuse their laziness by blaming the economy, their circumstances, their upbringing, or the people around them. They believe success is a matter of luck, timing, or connections, when in fact success is the reward of the man who demands more of himself than others believe is reasonable. Understand this. If you do not push yourself beyond comfort, you will remain exactly where you are. Your life will change only in proportion to the discomfort you are willing to endure for its improvement. You cannot escape this law, for it is one of the foundational principles of achievement. Too many wait for life to demand more from them. They wait for the crisis, the emergency, the job loss, the health scare, and then they scramble to adapt. But by then, they are already behind. The wise man does not wait for the fire to burn his house down before he builds the skill to protect it. He trains himself daily to respond to challenges before they arrive. If you are honest with yourself, you already know the areas where you have been coasting. You know the habits that are holding you back, the wasted hours, the easy choices you justify. You may even dress them up as self-care or taking it easy, but you know the truth. If you wish to join the ranks of those who accomplish more in a decade than others do in a lifetime, you must stop giving yourself permission to do less than your best. The man who demands more from himself does not speak in the language of excuses. He is not interested in why something can't be done. His mind immediately asks, how can I make this happen? And when the answer requires more skill, more patience, more persistence, or more courage, he accepts the cost without complaint. The greatest obstacle to your success is not the world's resistance, it is your own tolerance for mediocrity. You will find that when you raise your standards for yourself, life raises its rewards to match. The universe has a way of testing whether you are serious. It will give you small victories first to see if you squander them or build upon them. If you build, you receive more. If you waste, the opportunity disappears. Ask yourself, have you been living at the edge of your capacity, or have you been cruising comfortably in the middle? If you are not failing at something regularly, you are not pushing yourself hard enough. Failure is not the enemy. It is the confirmation that you are operating beyond your old limits. Demanding more from yourself is not about driving yourself into exhaustion or grinding without purpose. It is about expecting a higher quality of thought, a stronger work ethic, and a greater level of persistence from yourself than the situation might seem to require. It is about refusing to let yourself perform at a level beneath your true potential, even if no one else notices. I have seen men transform their entire fortunes simply by changing the question they ask themselves each morning. The average man asks, "What must I do today?" as if life is a list of obligations to be checked off. The man destined for greatness asks, "What more can I do today?" And he searches for ways to stretch his limits, to expand his capacity, to increase his value. That small shift in mindset is the beginning of wealth, influence, and mastery. It is easy to be ordinary. It is easy to do the bare minimum. It is easy to hide behind the crowd and let the tide carry you where it will. But do not mistake ease for safety. A life lived without self-demand is a life without direction. And a man without direction is at the mercy of any force stronger than himself. The habit of self-demand must be cultivated daily. It begins in the smallest choices, the ones so insignificant that no one would think to judge you for them. Do you take the shortcut or the long route? Do you keep your word to yourself when there is no consequence for breaking it? Do you finish what you started, or do you abandon it when the excitement fades? Character is forged in the moments when you could compromise without penalty. The man who builds the habit of excellence in private will not need to scramble for it in public. He will already possess it, and others will sense it in his presence. This is how respect is earned without ever asking for it. There is a great power that comes from refusing to negotiate with your own weakness. When you commit to a standard and refuse to lower it, you build self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of all achievement. Without it, you will crumble under pressure, for you cannot rely on a man you do not respect. Do not misunderstand me. Demanding more from yourself will not always bring applause. In fact, it will often bring criticism, envy, and resistance from those who are content with less. They will accuse you of being obsessed, too intense, too ambitious. But remember, they are not criticizing your methods. They are protecting their own comfort. If they can convince you to lower your standards, they will feel justified in keeping theirs low. Do not take advice from those who have not achieved what you seek. If you wish to master your craft, listen to the man who has mastered his own. If you wish to build wealth, seek counsel from those who have done it through discipline and service. And if you wish to live a life of power, train with those who have demanded more of themselves than comfort would allow. Self-demand will force you to shed the habits, associations, and environments that encourage complacency. You will have to release friendships that thrive on excuses. You will have to abandon routines that keep you stagnant. You will have to stop indulging in distractions that steal your time. This is the price, and if you are willing to pay it, you will discover that what you gain is far greater than what you lose. There is a reason most people never rise to greatness. The cost is visible and immediate, but the reward is invisible until it arrives. You will sacrifice comfort before you taste victory. You will endure discipline before you enjoy freedom. And you must walk through a season of loneliness before you find your true allies. But hear me clearly. If you are willing to demand more from yourself, you will eventually outgrow the reach of your old life. Opportunities will appear that were invisible before, because you were not yet the man who could see them. You will begin to notice doors that were always there, but locked to the man of lesser discipline. And you will hold the key, forged by your own persistence, sharpened by your own sacrifice. If you are ready for a life others call impossible, stop waiting for the world to raise the bar for you. Raise it yourself, and then rise to meet it. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, something remarkable happens. Your mind begins to reject anything beneath it. Tasks you once approached lazily now irritate you if done halfway. Words you once spoke carelessly now feel unworthy to leave your mouth. You become allergic to mediocrity, not because you are pretending to be better than others, but because you have tasted the satisfaction of knowing you gave your best. And when you have experienced that satisfaction once, it will haunt you every time you fall short. This is how greatness is built, by making excellence so normal in your life that anything less feels wrong. You cannot demand more from yourself if you are content to live on autopilot. Most men rise in the morning and repeat yesterday, as if time itself has granted them endless days to waste. They move through the hours without urgency, without purpose, without that inner voice reminding them that life is a one-way path. But the man who demands more from himself wakes with a different fire. He knows the clock is not his friend. It is a debt collector taking a piece of his life with every tick. If you want your life to change, you must demand more from yourself today. Not next week, not next year, not when the right time comes. There is no right time. There's only now, and what you do with it. It is a dangerous illusion to believe you can simply turn it on later, that you can live casually now and suddenly live with discipline when you decide. Excellence does not work that way. It is not a switch. It is a muscle. If you do not train it daily, it will not be there when you need it. And so, you must look at every day as an opportunity to build the man you will need to be in the future. You are either preparing for a life of abundance or drifting toward a life of regret. There is no middle ground. Think about the areas where you have been accepting less from yourself. Do you keep putting off that project because the conditions aren't perfect? Do you let emotions dictate your effort? Do you stop when you are tired instead of when the work is complete? Every time you accept less, you strengthen the habit of quitting. And habits become chains, invisible at first, but later impossible to break without pain. This is why I tell you, the sooner you demand more from yourself, the sooner you break the chain. Demanding more from yourself does not mean doing everything at once. It means doing the most important thing at the highest level you are capable of consistently until it becomes second nature. When that standard becomes normal, you raise it again. This is how you evolve. One of the greatest lies a man can believe is that life will reward him simply for showing up. The truth is, the world owes you nothing for existing. It owes you nothing for being a good person. It will reward you only when you create something of value, solve a problem others cannot, or perform at a level that commands attention. And none of that is possible without self-demand. Consider how most men approach a task. If the requirement is 10, they give 10 and then stop. They measure themselves against the minimum, as if that is the target. But the man who demands more from himself never measures against the minimum. He measures against his potential. If he is capable of 20, he gives 20, even if only 10 is required. And in doing so, he separates himself from every man who stops at good enough. I tell you from my own experience, good enough is the language of mediocrity. Better than yesterday is the language of progress. And nothing less than my best is the language of greatness. The man who demands more from himself will often work harder for the same pay, at least in the beginning. He will often go unnoticed for a time. But this is not a reason to lower his standard. This is the test. The world is asking, will you still do your best when no one is clapping? If the answer is yes, you are already ahead, because most men will quit the moment their effort goes unnoticed. The principle is simple. If you are faithful in the small things, you will be trusted with greater things. But if you cut corners in the small things, do not expect life to hand you the larger ones. Self-demand is not something you practice only when others are looking. In fact, its real power is built in private. When you train yourself to meet your own highest standard without supervision, you develop a discipline that cannot be faked. And when that discipline is tested in public, it will be genuine. You will notice that once you start demanding more from yourself, your circle will begin to change. Some will drift away, not because you have rejected them, but because your standard has revealed their complacency. They will feel uncomfortable around you because your presence reminds them of the effort they are avoiding. Do not lower your standard to make them feel comfortable. Let them either rise with you or remain behind. You must also be prepared for a peculiar form of criticism. People will accuse you of being too hard on yourself. They will tell you to relax and enjoy life. But understand, this is not wisdom. It is projection. They have mistaken ease for happiness, when in truth, ease without purpose leads to misery. The joy you seek does not come from avoiding effort. It comes from knowing you have given your all to something worthwhile. That sense of pride when you collapse into bed at night, knowing you could not have done more, that is real satisfaction. And it cannot be purchased or faked. It must be earned. If you truly want to live a life others admire, you must accept the truth that most will not understand your drive. They will think you are obsessed, that you are sacrificing too much. But the man who demands more from himself knows that the greatest sacrifice is to waste his life on mediocrity. One of the fastest ways to raise your standard is to surround yourself with people who already live at a higher one. Spend time with those who make you feel as if you are not doing enough, not because they criticize you, but because their example shows you what is possible. In such company, complacency feels unnatural. You begin to adopt their habits, their urgency, their refusal to settle. But there is another truth you must remember. Even among the ambitious, you must still be your own enforcer. No one else will ever demand as much from you as you can demand from yourself. And if you wait for someone else to push you, you will always be limited by their expectations. There is a simple question you can ask yourself every day to ensure you are living by this principle. If I were training someone else to succeed at the highest level, would I accept from them the effort I gave today? If the answer is no, you already know what must be done tomorrow. Do not underestimate how quickly your life can change when you hold yourself to this standard. The moment you stop giving yourself permission to do less, you will see an immediate shift in your results. People will begin to notice a difference in how you carry yourself. Opportunities will appear where before there were none. And most importantly, you will begin to trust yourself because you will have proven day after day that you can be relied upon to give your all. This is not a temporary sprint. Self-demand must be a permanent state of living. If you lower your standard once, it becomes easier to lower the game. And soon you will find yourself back where you started, comfortable but unsatisfied. I warn you now, the path of demanding more from yourself is not the easier road. It is steep, it is tiring, and it requires you to face parts of yourself you may prefer to ignore. But it is the only road that leads to mastery, freedom, and respect, both from others and from yourself. If you will embrace it, if you will commit to living each day as if you are the only one responsible for your own greatness, then nothing in this world can stop you. For a man who demands more from himself cannot be defeated, he can only be delayed. The moment you make the decision to demand more from yourself, you ignite a war inside. It is a war between the man you are and the man you are capable of becoming. The man you are will plead with you to stay where you are because he fears discomfort, he fears judgment, he fears failure. The man you are capable of becoming will command you to move forward because he knows that comfort is a prison, that judgment is irrelevant, and that failure is the tuition of greatness. Understand this. The man you are today is not loyal to your potential. He is loyal to your habits. And habits fight to survive, even the ones that keep you small. This is why change feels like death at first, because part of you is dying, but it is the part that was keeping you from the life you were meant to live. Most men never win this war. They retreat when the pressure comes. They make peace with mediocrity because it is easier than the daily battle of self-demand. They hide behind excuses like I'm doing my best, when deep down they know they have never even approached their best. But the man who refuses to surrender to that voice, he is the one who discovers what life can truly offer. To live at a higher standard, you must be willing to be misunderstood. You must be willing to be called obsessive, extreme, or unrealistic. These are the words used by those who have accepted less from themselves and resent those who refuse to do the same. If you ever find yourself surrounded only by people who approve of your pace, you are in the wrong environment. Growth requires friction. If no one is challenging your output, you are probably not demanding enough from yourself. Do not wait for life to force you into demanding more. Yes, hardship can sharpen a man. Yes, crisis can awaken discipline. But a man who waits for tragedy before taking himself seriously is gambling with his future. Why wait for life to corner you before you fight? Why not fight now, on your own turn? Think of your life as a field you are cultivating. If you plant carelessly, water sporadically, and harvest lazily, do not expect a rich yield. Life gives back what you consistently give to it, not what you occasionally feel like giving. And the consistency of your effort is directly tied to the standard you demand of yourself. Examine your daily life. Where are you leaving energy unused? Where are you giving yourself an easy out? Where are you letting emotion overrule commitment? Write these down, not in your mind, but on paper, and confront them without excuse. These are the cracks in your foundation. Left unaddressed, they will widen until the whole structure collapses. A man who demands more from himself is never casual about his weaknesses. He seeks them out, studies them, and attacks them relentlessly. He does not avoid the hard conversation with himself. He asks, if I were an opponent, how would I defeat me? Then he works to remove that weakness so there is nothing for the opponent to exploit. You must understand the real opponent is not the man competing for your job, your market, or your audience. It is not the one trying to outrun you in the race. It is the weaker version of yourself who whispers that you have done enough, that you have earned the right to stop. He is persuasive, reasonable, and patient. If you allow him to win often enough, you will wake up one day to find he has stolen years from you. So you must meet him every day, and you must defeat him every day. You defeat him by doing what you said you would do, even when the feeling is gone. You defeat him by holding your work to a higher measure than good enough. You defeat him by reminding yourself that the only true satisfaction comes from knowing you did not allow yourself to coast. It is not enough to want success. Desire without discipline is daydreaming. The man who achieves is the one who transforms desire into demand. He says to himself, I will not go to bed tonight without completing what I promised myself this morning. And then he keeps that promise again and again until keeping it becomes part of who he is. Some will ask you, when will you relax? The answer is simple. When the work is done. And if the work is never truly done, then the relaxation they speak of will be nothing more than moments you choose deliberately, not a state you live in by default. There is no shame in rest, but there is shame in quitting. You must remember that in this world, you are not rewarded for potential, you are rewarded for performance. Potential is an uncashed check. Performance is the money in your hand. You may have the capacity to do great things, but until you demand that greatness from yourself and act upon it, you will remain where you are. A dangerous pattern for ambitious men is to believe that the effort they gave yesterday is enough to carry them tomorrow. It is not. Every day resets the scoreboard. Every day asks you the same question. What will you give today? And every day you have a choice, to match your past effort or to surpass it. The man who wins long term is the one who makes surpass it his default. You may think this is exhausting. It is not. It is energizing. What drains a man is not high effort, but low purpose. When you know your work matters, when you know you are building something that demands the best of you, fatigue becomes fuel. You fall asleep knowing you've emptied yourself into the day, and you wake ready to do it again. But here is the truth. Most people will never live like this. They are satisfied with being better than average, forgetting that average is just another word for unnoticed. If you demand more from yourself, you will notice something fascinating. Your competition will begin to disappear. Not because they're gone, but because they cannot keep up with your pace. They will disqualify themselves by their own inconsistency. And all you will have done is stay true to the standard you set. If you are serious about this, you must stop negotiating with yourself. No more just this once when it comes to breaking your own rule. No more I'll make up for it later when you skip the work. Every time you break your own standard, you teach yourself that your word means nothing. But every time you honor it, even when it costs you comfort, you strengthen the bond of self-trust. I tell you plainly, self-trust is more valuable than motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Self-trust remains. When you know you can rely on yourself to follow through, you no longer need to wait for the perfect mood or the perfect moment. You simply act because you have become the kind of man who acts. Do not be deceived into thinking you will demand more from yourself when things settle down. Life will never settle down. It will always present reasons to delay. The only solution is to act now, in the middle of the chaos, and make excellence a habit under any condition. When you can perform under less than ideal circumstances, you become unstoppable when the conditions improve. And let me leave you with this warning. If you lower your standard for the sake of temporary comfort, you will pay for it later in lost opportunities, in diminished confidence, and in the quiet frustration of knowing you could have done more. You will not be able to shake that truth. It will follow you into every new attempt, whispering that you have a history of quitting on yourself. So instead, let your history be one of relentless self-demand. Let it be a story you are proud to tell, that you chose the harder road, that you refused to lower your standard, that you lived as if your future depended on your effort today. Because it does. There comes a moment in every man's life when he must decide, will I lead myself, or will I allow my impulses, my fears, and my surroundings to lead me? If you refuse to demand more from yourself, you have already chosen the latter. You have given authority over your destiny to circumstances and convenience. But the man who decides to lead himself, truly lead himself, understands that leadership begins not with others, but with mastery over his own mind, his own habits, and his own standards. You will never rise above the rules you set for yourself. If your rules are loose, if your boundaries are easy to break, then your life will mirror that weakness. If your rules are sharp, if they allow no room for laziness, no room for dishonor, then your life will rise to meet that discipline. It is that simple. But because it is simple, most men will ignore it. Every great achievement I have witnessed began with one man saying to himself, I will not live like this any longer. That sentence is the turning point. It is the moment when the excuses are burned, the old habits are buried, and the standard is rewritten in steel. From that point forward, the man ceases to look for inspiration. Instead, he becomes the source of it. Understand that a man who demands more from himself walks a road that is often lonely. Not because there is no one else on the road, but because few are willing to walk it at the same speed. Those who once kept pace will slow down. They will invite you to slow down too, and they will dress their invitation in the language of concern. Don't burn yourself out. You are already doing more than enough. These words are poison if you believe them. Remember, mediocrity never calls itself by name. it always disguises itself as reason. You must become immune to this language. You must be willing to be seen as unreasonable in the eyes of those who have surrendered to comfort. Your job is not to convince them to join you. Your job is to keep moving at the pace you promised yourself. If they catch up, welcome them. If they don't, keep going. Demanding more from yourself is not about perfection. It is about refusal. Refusal to lower the standard when it gets hard. Refusal to let your feelings dictate your action. Refusal to make decisions from weakness instead of strength. This is the core of self-leadership, and it is why so few possess it. There will be days when your work feels invisible, when no one notices the hours you've given or the sacrifices you've made. Those are the most important days, because they are the days when you prove that you are not doing this for applause. If you can demand more from yourself without the reward of recognition, you have already separated yourself from the majority. I have seen men give extraordinary effort for a short time, only to return to mediocrity the moment the crowd stops cheering. These men were not committed to excellence. They were committed to being seen as excellent. There is a difference. One lasts. The other fades the moment the attention shifts. You must choose which you will be. Let me speak plainly. Your greatest enemy in this pursuit will not be laziness. It will be the temptation of almost enough. Almost enough is where most dreams go to die. It is the man who trains hard but skips the last rep. The man who works late but leaves the most important task undone. The man who sharpens his skills but avoids the one weakness that could cost him everything. You know exactly where you've been living in almost enough. It is the conversation you keep putting off, the discipline you say you'll start on Monday, the uncomfortable action you've been postponing until the right time. These are the areas where you must demand more, because these are the areas that will define you. Do not make the mistake of thinking you can hide your weaknesses behind your strengths forever. Life has a way of exposing the thing you've been avoiding, and it will do so at the worst possible moment. The only defense is to confront it now, when the cost is still within your control. There is no room for part-time effort in a full-time pursuit of success. You cannot treat your ambitions as a hobby and expect them to pay you like a profession. You cannot demand the rewards of the top while working like those in the middle. If you want what few have, you must do what few do, consistently, without bargaining, without self-pity. I have seen men transform their lives in months simply because they stopped tolerating their own excuses. They decided that discipline was not something they would attempt. It was something they would become. They began to see themselves not as men trying to be disciplined, but as disciplined men. This shift is not minor. It is the dividing line between temporary progress and permanent change. When you demand more from yourself, you begin to notice the smallest areas where you've been careless. Your language, your posture, your tone in conversation, your punctuality, the way you keep your workspace, the quality of your commitments. Each of these speaks to your standard. When you raise the standard in one area, it inevitably rises in others. And this compound effect is what separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. But here is the truth most will not accept. It is not enough to raise your standard once. You must raise it again and again, or life will pull you back to the level of the world around you. If you do not push yourself forward, you will drift backward. This is a law as certain as gravity. Demanding more from yourself will make you uncomfortable, and that discomfort is the proof that you are moving in the right direction. When the work feels too easy, it means you have adapted to it, and adaptation is the signal to increase the load. In every area of life, growth lies just beyond the line of comfort. Step over that line daily, and you will live in a constant state of expansion. You may be thinking, if I am always pushing for more, will I ever be satisfied? The answer is yes, but it will be a different kind of satisfaction. It will not be the fragile satisfaction of completion. It will be the deep, lasting satisfaction of knowing you gave your all. You will go to bed each night with the calm that only comes to a man who knows he left nothing on the table. There is a hidden benefit to this way of living that few understand until they experience it. When you demand more from yourself, the world begins to mirror that demand back to you. Opportunities find you. People respect you without you asking for it. Doors open that were once locked. This is not magic. It is the natural response of the world to a man who proves day after day that he can be trusted with more. But make no mistake, if you lower your demand, the world will lower its offer. It will give you exactly what you settled for, nothing more. If you are not satisfied with what life is giving you, look first at what you are requiring of yourself. I will leave you with this. Every man you admire, every life you envy, every achievement that seems almost unreachable, they were all built on the same principle. Someone, at some point, decided that enough was not enough. They looked at their own reflection and demanded more, not once, but every single day thereafter. You are capable of far more than you have demanded of yourself so far. The question is not whether you can rise higher, it is whether you will choose to. And the answer will be written not in your intentions, but in your habits, your actions, and your unbroken promises to yourself. Demand more. Do it now. Do it daily. And do it until it becomes who you are.